Hi guys, I'm just popping in for a very quick video to talk to you about your part one. This is not some emergency broadcast or anything, because by and large, I think the submissions were pretty good. There were no major problems. I'm just here to explain or clarify some of the feedback you would have seen from me, and also just to encourage you all to find ways to improve on your existing work. I'm going to share my screen here with you and just go over a few pointers and a little bit of explanation and context for your marks and what to do going forward. I think the first thing I wanted to say was to work out where you now stand after part one. So work out how many marks you have so far for the whole semester by taking the mark you got for part one and dividing it by 4. Okay, I'm telling you to do that because the weighting that part one has is 25% of your final mark. So if, for example, you got 60%, divide that by 4 and you will have 15 marks that you've got in the bank, which goes towards your final semester grade. You still have 75% of your final mark left to get, by the way. 10% of that is ICE. So if you throw 10% in there for your 15, you will have 25 out of 100 already. The remaining 65% will come from your POE, right? So if you want to work out where you are, how many marks you've got currently, if perhaps you're disappointed with your mark and you're worried about passing, then go check how many marks you've got on the board already, and it might reassure you that actually you're doing okay. If you've got 80%, you did really well. You've got 20, throw in ICE, you've got 30% already. All you need is another 20% from your POE and you pass, okay? Of course, passing isn't the only goal. You want to do really well and get distinctions. So this will help you work out what you should be targeting. If you didn't hand anything in, you would have got 0 for part one. Okay, actually, that's not a huge train smash because you've still, like I said, got 75% of your final mark left to earn, right? You can still hand in ICE, you can still hand in a POE, and even though you missed part one, you can actually still pass the module if you do well in both of those domains. So if you missed it for whatever reason, you forgot the deadline, you didn't know, you were sick, whatever happened, you can actually still pass the semester. You can still get through this module if you just do your ICE and if you just hand in a good POE. So take that as encouragement, see that it's good news. Not all hope is lost. Hope springs eternal, as always. Here is some typical feedback that I might have given you. This is something you could possibly see on your page in some way. And I think looking at this, what I was noticing for almost everybody is that oftentimes your work would lack an explanation and description of specific examples from the movie, okay? This I saw mostly in those who did the essay and or the film review, okay? So what I was saying in a lot of my feedback is that I wanted to see not just a briefly stated example, but an example that you really get into, which you detail and unpack as closely as you possibly can, in a way that helps you illustrate or show your points. I noticed too often that I think some of you were just bluntly telling me something, which was something correct, something fair and true, but they're not exploring it any further than just telling me. After that, you've got to take a few more steps and actually pay attention to what it is that you're trying to argue and prove your argument by drawing on as much detail from the film as you possibly can. Here's an example. Somebody might say Quentin Tarantino really captures the time because of the way the characters dress. And then they would just move on to the next point. That's a good point. It's a fair point, and it's correct. You are right in what you've said. But what do they wear? What clothes are they exactly wearing? What do the clothes say about the characters? Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio dress in very distinctive ways, but also differently from one another, right? So what are they wearing? What shoes do they have on? What does it tell us about their personalities? Why do you think Tarantino puts them in those clothes? So whenever you make a point, you can always just stop there when you're writing and then ask yourself a question. Just say, why? Why did I write that? What am I trying to say? Why did Tarantino do this? Why does he say that? And in answering this why question and in focusing closely on unpacking the details of really showing me, illustrating me vividly the scene in front of you, you will find that you really are writing an essay that's a lot more detailed and rich and interesting. You've kind of got to pretend as the reader you're writing this for hasn't actually seen the film, maybe knows a bit about it, but you've got to really illustrate your points. You've got to kind of decorate your argument with all of these glittering details from the film. And the film has a lot to say about it, so it gives you a lot of stuff to write about too. In doing this, you also find, I think, that you end up writing an essay that's a lot more focused. So instead of saying 10 different things, you find that you actually only have room to write about 3 or 4 things. But because you're saying so much about those selected things, your essay has this very good, focused and clear and grounded understanding of what the movie is showing and what it is that you think is significant about the film. Okay, so don't just breeze by something. If you've mentioned the music, don't just say that Quentin Tarantino plays upbeat music. That is correct, but why? What is the music? What kind of upbeat does it have? Why does he pick it for that scene? What mood does it create? How do all of these details filter back to helping you develop an argument, an answer to the question that the essay posed? Okay. So maybe when you're planning out an essay or something, just think of a few pivotal scenes that you want to describe in great detail, right? Ground the thing, the review, the essay that you're writing in the film itself. Focus narrowly on something that you really look at extremely closely, always remembering to tie it back to what is that you're trying to argue for, okay? Otherwise, it can always feel a bit too general, a bit too vague, a bit too breezy. Like there's too many points and they don't hang together. All the points are correct. I can't fault you. You guys weren't making stuff up. You weren't picking the wrong examples. You were looking at exactly the right things. It's just what you're doing with it could be of a higher quality in certain instances. Okay. Remember that one of those questions you answered needs to be resubmitted for the POE. You have to improve it by following the feedback that I've been giving you. You can, I mean, if you do well there, you can easily get another 10 or 15 marks. So it's worthwhile. In the POE, I think you also have to write a reflective essay on the changes you made and what you learned from those changes. So this is an important part of that final POE submission. And then if I've asked you to, please do check your referencing. Generally, on average, I think the referencing was good. I didn't see huge problems. Where I noticed there was an issue, I made sure to mention that you need to find a way to improve. Check your work against the IIE referencing guide. Talk to somebody in the online library. If you're friendly with somebody in the class who's good at referencing, lean on them for some help. Go back and watch my YouTube video. Find a YouTube video on how to reference. Pay attention to the document that I gave you early in the semester where I showed you how it should look on the page. Okay. So that's another way, if you went astray here, that you can improve marks. I didn't really subtract marks or give you penalties for referencing, but it does contribute to a lower academic quality in the work, which is a part of the rubric. It's like 5 marks or so. This is the needless way to score 2 out of 5 is by some poor referencing. Okay, so these are the main points I wanted to give you. You'll have your marks back by now. Read over my feedback and make sure you incorporate it for the big hand-in of the POE at the end of the semester. You've got 65% of your final mark in that POE alone. So putting in a big effort, making sure you hand it in and that you hand it in on time can be a huge difference to your overall experience of this first year of studying. Okay, so I will do another quick video maybe by Friday on Maya Angelou. Look out for that, and I'll see you again live next week. Stay very well until then, guys, and enjoy the rest of your week.